Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into our office hours webinar. As always, our goal with these webinars is to make sure you all have a solid understanding of our platform so that you can get the most out of your data collection. Today, we will be tackling one of SurveyCTO's most powerful and versatile features, case management. And there is a lot you can do with this feature. So what we plan to do today is give you an overview and a demo using a specific example so that after the webinar, you're more comfortable trying out the feature for yourself. And as usual, these office hours also have a Q&A portion at the end. So if you do have specific questions about case management, you have a chance to ask our team live. So before we get into the main content, let me introduce our speakers for today. We have Mafia Fury, our customer research advisor, Najin Kim, our technical support associate. They both have a ton of great experience helping our users with technical questions. So I'm thrilled they are presenting today. I am Shirley Sweeney, and I am your moderator.
So thank you, Shirley. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our office hour today. So the idea is we want to explore a very powerful concept, which we call case management. This is something that's available across different data collection processes. So whether you're tracking people or places or things over a period of time, you really want to use a tool like this to help you do that. Case management will give you good solutions that these solutions are going to bring better structure, increase efficiency, and also hopefully better quality to your projects. So let's get into it. Okay, and obviously the best place to start is by answering the question, what is case management? So at its core, case management is data collection. In data collection basically means you're organizing your entire project around a specific entity. Okay. Generally, you are tracking a particular entity, and instead of focusing on the individual survey forms, you focus on that entity that you are tracking. And that entity is usually what you refer to as a case. Okay. This could be a person in a health study. It could be a household in a socio-economic survey. It could be a facility like a school or a clinic, or even an asset, for example, a water pump or a vehicle in a logistics chain. The technical heart of case management in SurveyCTO is what we call the cases dataset. Okay, imagine this as your central registry or database. And it contains a list of all the entities. Each case in the dataset, each entity has a unique identifier. We usually refer to it as the case ID. And along with that, there's some key information, the name, the label, and so on, that can help you identify that particular entity. Yeah. So the power in this comes from being able to link multiple forms. Okay, a baseline, several follow-up forms, an audit form, or a service delivery record, and you directly link those using that single case ID. Okay, by doing that, you have a complete 360 view of everything collected about that specific entity, and you can organize those very neatly over a period of time. Case management also allows you to assign specific cases to specific team members. You use designated columns in your cases dataset, like the user or the row, and you will use this to control exactly which cases an enumerator or a team member sees and interacts with. With that, you have clear ownership and helps you manage your workload more effectively. So instead of having disconnected forms, you have a structured system where a central list of cases is the primary reference. The data flows up and is linked using the relevant case ID, while the case assignments will flow down from the data set to guide your field teams on which cases they should actually work on. Okay, so it gives you a very incredibly flexible framework. Okay, and it gives you the ability to support diverse projects from tracking individuals to monitoring infrastructure or even managing feedback over a period of time. So that's case management. Hopefully, you begin to get a picture of that. So, why case management? Okay, how is this actually useful? Case management directly addresses some of the most common challenges that we have in data collection. Okay, and we can summarize these in three key outcomes. Firstly, you get superior data quality. By linking all your data to a single case ID within a central data set, you eliminate data silos. You get a complete historical timeline for each entity, making it easy to spot inconsistencies and then also to track changes and maintain a clean and reliable data set. As an example, one of our partners who are running a large-scale survey used case management to track over 15,000 respondents. And with that, they were able to ensure every interview record was linked perfectly back to the correct person. And also, it allowed them to do rigorous audits and analysis. Okay, so we get superior data quality. Secondly, we get increased efficiency. Case management streamlines workflows and significantly reduces manual effort. Enumerators don't have to repeatedly type or search for basic case details like the names or the identifiers. This information will be preloaded from the cases dataset. And with advanced online capabilities, field teams can work seamlessly even without internet, with data syncing automatically only when they connect to the internet. Okay. We have again examples of some of our partners like Oxfam who have implemented a feedback system in disaster zones. They used to keep complaints moving basically through a workflow on devices, and that workflow allows them only to sync periodically. So they don't have to prevent work whilst there's no internet. They can do that, their work offline, and then when they have internet, they can go on and sync with the server. And this makes sure that the work is not delayed at any point. And then thirdly, you get enhanced privacy and control. Basically, you gain a granular control over who sees what as part of your setup. Okay, so you can use the assignment column that we talked about earlier, your user column, your user roles, and so on. You're able to restrict sensitive information, okay, so that it's only accessible to authorized personnel. Every interaction and access point can be logged, and that way you have a very good audit trail. And with that audit trail, obviously, it's going to build the trust of stakeholders, of donors, and even of ethics review boards. So ultimately, if your goal is to have cleaner data, faster operations, and more secure, controlled information, then case management is something that can help you achieve these goals. So how exactly do you decide to say whether I need case management or not for my project? Okay, so we'll give you at least 4 questions that you can think of and use to sort of just judge whether your project would benefit from case management or not. So the first question we're going to ask, obviously, is, do you have a known list of entities? Do you have a list of cases before you start the data collection? Or can you easily create one? Case management is most powerful when you're working from a predefined list and preloading your cases data. So if you're saying yes to that question, you potentially can use case management for that. The second question that you can ask yourself is, will you visit or interact with these entities more than once? So if your project involves repeat visits, follow-up surveys, or longitudinal tracking over time, then case management is almost always a recommended approach. You'll be able to link multiple data points with the same case ID, and using that, you're going to end up with a good historical record of the different relationships that are there between the forms that you have. The third question you can ask yourself is, would your data collection be made easier by breaking down one large questionnaire into smaller modular forms that, when you put together, will give you a complete record? Basically, if you say yes to that, again, case management is probably something that you should consider. The last one was just about the ownership of cases. Okay, so do you want to have clear ownership of cases, basically maybe assign specific cases to specific team members, or if you have a workflow that involves some handoffs. So if you need to manage who works on which cases, just ensure that you want to ensure that you have equitable workload distribution, or you can make sure that your cases go through different levels. Basically, case management is going to help you with this. Okay. So just again to give an example of how one of our partners used this idea of case management. They had a phone survey during the COVID-19 time, and basically they had a number of things that they wanted to achieve. Firstly, they needed multiple rounds of calls, okay, and that goes to answer our second question around repeated or follow-ups. Okay, so they've got multiple rounds of calls, and then they had some preloaded phone numbers, okay, which was answering the first question, and they needed to assign specific lists to different agents so that they can manage the quotas that they had. They're answering yes to question 4. And so obviously case management became like something that they really had to lean on. But it doesn't mean that you have to have yes to all those questions. It could be yes to only one question. Basically, you can use that as a decision tree. So ultimately, case management gives you this idea of being able to track information over time. But its flexibility also means that you don't always have to start with cases available. Okay, what we said in point number 1. So for example, if you think about a traditional household survey, usually you start off with listing households. Okay, you don't know the households, you go into an area, you list all the households that are there, and then from those households, you might pick out households that meet some type of criteria. Once you've picked out the ones that meet that criteria, those can now become your cases. You can create cases at that point, and you can do all of this within an automated workflow from form to form. And then you can now follow up on those eligible households over a period of time. Okay, so that's sort of where case management is. Hopefully we get a good sense of what it is, but let's also now look at exactly what case management looks like. And so I will ask Najin to take us through a demo in terms of how we can actually see case management in action. Najin, over to you.
Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining. In this short demo, I will walk you through a real-world case management workflow designed for community health workers using SurveyCTO. This workflow is a great example of how to manage cases that require follow-up and team collaboration. This workflow is already available on the Discover tab on your Server console, as well as its accompanying support article. So we will provide links to these resources so you can check them out for yourself after the webinar. To start off, I will quickly give you a high-level overview of how this workflow is structured, so you'll have a clear picture in mind when I walk you through it in the Server console. So as you can see from this diagram, this workflow has 2 forms in blue and 6 server data sets shown in green. And the arrows show how data flows between data sets and forms. And what I'll show you today is how easy it is to update the cases and other server data sets simply by filling out the forms. And you'll also see how smoothly data is pulled from data sets like the symptoms and diseases data sets into the forms, which then better informs what the enumerators see when meeting with patients. As Mafia mentioned earlier, case management is perfect for scenarios where you already know who you are visiting, which makes sense since the enumerators have a list of patients they are scheduled to meet with. And you need to check in more than once and build each patient's record over time, which is also true since there is an initial household visit followed by a consultation, and data is collected at both points. You may have more than one team member managing a case. And yes, in this example, I will show you how easy it is to reassign a case to a different team member. So let's take a look at how each of these comes into play in the workflow. So here on the server console, thank you, you can see two forms in blue and along with the 4 server data sets in green. The type of each data set is indicated by these icons. So this single person icon represents the cases data set, and the group icon indicates the enumerators data set. In this case, community health workers. I'll be interchanging the terms for this. And the stack of disks icon stands for regular server data sets. So this is just an example. You can use less or even more server data sets according to your specific data collection needs. So in this case, this workflow comes with these 2 forms and 4 server data sets as a default. Let's take a look at the cases data set. In this case, it's the community health workers consultations. I'll click on edit. And here you can see these required default columns, which are ID, label, form IDs, users, roles, sort by, and enumerators. So even though you're not using these rows, columns such as roles or sort by, it's recommended to adding these default columns for the cases data set to work properly. And here you can also see other custom columns in your member ID, appointment, and ad hoc columns that are added just for this specific workflow. So here you can see these different rows of cases, identify these IDs. Let me just click on the first case. Here you can see that each household member is a case identified by this ID. And you can also see the status of the case and the assigned enumerators. So the number 3 and the member ID and the appointment schedule. So you can set this up during the form design and also when your cases data set publishing. So let's just save the changes. So now let's fill out a form and see how these actually work. So let's say that I'm a community health worker on a household visit, and I will fill out the first form, household form, to check and update the information on the existing household and household members, and add new ones if there are any. So now I'm on the household form. This is a simplified form, so when you actually deploy the full workflow, you will see a lot more extensive form, but for this demo, I made it quite short. So first, I'm logged in as an enumerator number 1. I confirm, and then the basic consent question. So here, without having filling out any information, you can already see the information of the households. So you can see the existing households. They were already pulled from the existing server data set, households server data set. And there's even a way that you can even add a new household when it's necessary. So I'll just click on the first household and see. Then now I'm asked to see if there are any new household members to add. I'll just say we have 1 person. And I'm gonna put the new household member name, let's say Cecilia Lopez. So this is a new household name. I'm gonna say this household member is available, and we will ask some health questions for this new household member. Here you can see all the list of symptoms that are already pulled from the symptoms data set. So here I'm going to select these 3 symptoms. We set up this workflow in a way that when the new household member or existing household member has more than 3 symptoms, they are going to be, they're going to see this screen where they can see the suspected disease, which is also pulled from the diseases survey data set. So here in this case, this patient, household member, is guided to ask to schedule a consultation because they have these symptoms that can indicate that this person might have a pneumonia. So I'm going to say yes. Later. So in this case, we need to schedule a second visit. Let's say it's going to be tomorrow. And here you can find the information for the next consultation. It's going to be done this date and this time. And I will submit the form. So that's it. You just saw me filling out one form, and you saw all this data already pulled from cases data set, as well as different household member and disease and the symptoms data sets. So let's just go back to the server console, refresh. Can take some time to update the cases data set and other server data sets. I'm just gonna click. So here you can see the new case, Cecilia Lopez, assigned to the new the enumerator number 1. So let's just take a look. So just by filling out the form, the ID, the case ID for this household member is already generated. You didn't have to do anything. It's just, you know, the way the form is structured. And you can see the assigned enumerator and the information on the next appointment. I'll just close it. So as a community health worker, I need to do the follow-up visit to do the consultation. We already made an appointment. But in this case, I need to access this form through the Manage Cases on the Collect app. So this menu keeps the data collection organized by case, letting enumerators or community health workers, in this case, view related forms, preloaded relevant data, and track progress efficiently. It also ensures that they only see the cases assigned to them through enumerator-based filtering. So you can just, I just enter as the enumerator number 1, and I can see that this new household member assigned to me. So this process of the flow of information and the cases is very seamless when you see in action. So I click, and then I already see the form that is assigned to me for this case. And of course, depending on your specific needs, as also mentioned by Mafia earlier, you can add as many as forms possible, depending on your project needs. So I'll just fill out the form. Very simplified form. When you actually see the actual form, it's going to be a lot longer, but for this demo, I made it very short. So it's the enumerator, it's yes. Here you can see the information on the appointment pulled from the server data set and cases data set. So this is the current consultation. Thank you. And some follow-ups on the medication that the patient might be taking. So you can also add many other questions related to this health or even specific diseases. I mean, depending on the design. So you can also see the follow-up on the symptoms. So you see this symptom already pulled from the existing symptoms data set. So yeah, you didn't have to ask again, oh, did you have this pain? But it's already there. So I'm gonna say yes, still have the chills and still confused. So I'm going to submit this form. So now let's go back to the server console. I'm just gonna refresh. Here. So it's, updated automatically. And let's see. So here you can see this case for Cecilia Lopez appears to be closed because this is because we already set up this workflow in a way that when the consultation visit is done, just one consultation, it's going to be considered as closed. So here you can see it's closed as a user. So when it's not going to appear again as my case. So lastly, there can be situations where a community health worker who was originally assigned to a case can no longer do a house visit for a consultation. I mean, things happen. So in this case, as a data manager or administrator, you can assign a new enumerator to this case from the server console. So let's say this case cannot be, the enumerator number 1 can no longer do the second visit. So let's say, I'm going to assign to enumerator number 2. So I'm gonna just change, click the update. So here you can see that it's already changed. So let me go back. Here, I don't get to see any cases assigned to me, but actually I had another case as an enumerator number 1. But I will change the enumerator to number 2. And here you can see this new case is now assigned to the enumerator number 2. So it was very straightforward in this case. So to wrap up, this demo showed how easy it is to populate case data sets and other server data sets by simply filling out the forms. And we also saw how effortlessly existing data from other forms, case data sets, and server data sets can be used in a new form. Lastly, we demonstrated how seamless it is to reassign a case to a new enumerator when needed. So now I'll hand over to Mafia, who will share best practices on using case management.
As you can see from that, case management is a very, very wide topic, and there's a lot that you can do with it. It essentially gives you a fairly blank canvas in which you can do just about anything in terms of workflows. What exactly you'll be able to do really depends on what you're trying to achieve, and you can have very simple case management workflows and very complex case management workflows. But obviously, because of that, when you're adopting case management, you're taking a very strategic step, okay? And you obviously need to think about some best practices just to make sure that everything that you implement is successful. So we've summarized some best practices here. So the first one is around the design of your cases dataset, okay? Because this is the foundation. So you need to make sure that each case is truly unique. It's got a unique case ID, and then there are clear labels that enumerators are able to recognize when they are interacting with them. Then you also need to make sure you define your form IDs column to list the forms that are relevant for each particular case. Okay, and obviously you can include any other details that are essential for your case management at this particular point. And then also think about access control right from the start. Okay, so you can use the users column, the rows column, and the enumerator column within the cases dataset to explicitly define who can see and access which cases. And obviously, this gives you a measure of security, some level of privacy, and also makes sure that you can manage the list sizes that the enumerators are interacting with on their devices. Okay. If you plan to work offline, you need to actually plan for this well in advance. Okay. Our case management is set up in such a way that it can work completely offline, but you need to make sure that you've set up all the features that are needed for that. Okay. But also that you engage with your enumerators and teach them how the syncing works when they're offline, how the data flow is going to work when they're offline, and when they connect to the server, and sort of what to expect to see at each one of those particular stages. Okay. That way, they'll always be able to figure out whether they have the right cases, if some cases are missing, and so on. Just have that conversation, practice it with them, and that way they'll be able to take advantage of the offline features much better. Okay. Work with your data within the context that you have it in your case management. So manage your data status. Avoid deleting data. So instead of permanently deleting cases when you're finished, you can use a status column, or you can use something like what Najin demonstrated there. We were able to close off cases just by publishing closed to the user's column. That way, if we need to go back to the data for whatever reason, we still have the data available and we can actually access that case data again. But because we have it, it's not available to our enumerators, it's not available on their devices for them to use. So we are able to preserve the data for future interrogation, but also manage the workflow at the same time, hiding off any data that the enumerators do not need at that particular point in time. Okay. And then test your workflow from start to end. Okay. Don't just work with your individual forms. You've got an entire process that you're trying to reflect in your case management. The full process. If there are 5 forms, look at how the transfer of data is moving from one form to the next, to the next, to the next. That way, you'll be able to make sure that your workflow is working properly. Look at how you're assigning cases, opening cases, collecting data, syncing, and how the data actually appears when you have linked it together. Okay, there are a lot of features within SurveyCTO that are meant to support this. Okay, so you can use our test features to set up your process, but then also make sure you test on the actual devices that are going to be used. So if you're using mobile devices, make sure you test on your mobile devices. Is everything working the way we expect it? If you're using the web, make sure you test on your web platform as much as possible to make sure that your workflow is actually set up the way you are going to expect it to work. And then finally, make sure that you train the team. Okay. Case management workflows generally can be fairly complex. And so you want to make sure that the team understands the expectations at each stage. Okay. If a form is supposed to disappear after the first stage, you want to make sure that the numerator knows that will come back and they find the form is not there. They're not surprised by what exactly is going on. Okay, so have a good training session. Sometimes make them a quick start video on how to assign cases and so on, so that they're really comfortable with the process they're following. And if you follow these habits, okay, you have thoughtful dataset design, you have good access control, you have planned for the offline setup, you have good data management, and you've done comprehensive testing and trained your people well. Generally, you have a very successful case management, and you'll be able to unlock the full power that case management gives you. And ultimately, you have cleaner data, you have more efficient operations, and you can have greater confidence in the flow that your project is actually following. Case management provides a good transformation, okay, in terms of how you can approach complex data collection projects. It gives you a good structure, especially for things like longitudinal studies, for complex workflows, and generally for you to manage larger field teams. And it does this, making your work a lot more efficient and providing better quality and generally better security, because you're managing how the data is being assigned on device. Okay, so those are some of the things that to look out for. For now, I'll hand over back to Shirley so that we can move on to the next part of our program. Shirley, over to you.
Okay, before we dive into the Q&A, and I definitely see a lot going on there, I just wanted to point out to all of you that these are the related documentation and support articles that we have around case management. I know there was one question around whether or not there are guidelines to show you the steps for how to go about this particular workflow. Yes, it is linked right here. And again, this will all be sent to you after today.